This is mostly going to be a fun talk. For work, I've done a lot of research on Townsend's big-eared bats and hibernating bats in lava tube caves, and also a lot of work with hoary bats here, pictured, and wind energy. But today I'm just going to talk about sort of the fun things and some fun facts for you all. So you might already know California has 25 bat species, so all bats are not the same. You all know that already, I'm sure. They often get lumped together, but they are not the same. We have 25 different species, and they're all insectivores. So I'm pretty sure that these videos I have will not work, but I will share this somehow through the Western region. This blurry bat over here is a red bat, and it does a flip. So bats have a tail membrane between their legs, just like their wing. It's the same as the skin on their wing, but they also have this tail membrane between their legs. And so their method for catching insects in the air is to sort of scoop them up like a big catcher's mitt. And this red bat even does a flip. They do these like crazy aerobatics in the air to try and catch these insects in the air. But not all bats catch insects in the air. Some of them glean insects off of vegetation, and some of them, like the pallid bat, can get insects off of the ground also. So that's kind of fun. Bats can eat between 30 and 50% of their body weight each night. So they provide this like massive pest control service for our agricultural industry that's been valued at the billions of dollars because they're eating almost half their weight. So I can't eat 75 pounds of food in one night, but bats can do that. Let's see. Yes, 25 different species in the state. This is a map of the bat acoustic monitoring portal. So it's sort of like iNaturalist, but for echolocation calls and acoustic monitoring for bats, which is how we're learning a ton about them. So the yellow star is where we are in Sonora right now, and you can see that there's between 10 and 15 species that have been detected in the last several years around this site. So there's lots of bats around, and we're starting to get better at collecting data and being able to share results like that. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the species that we all might see most commonly in caves first. You'll probably have seen this guy before, the Townsend's big-eared bat. This is a moth specialist bat, and you might have seen before moth wings on the ground in caves. Definitely, well, we couldn't say for sure, but this bat does that a lot. They eat the body of the moth, the soft, nice part, and they leave the wings behind, kind of like a candy wrapper, people say. So that's fun. They live not only in caves, but also in barns, and they love redwood tree hollows, so they're sort of mixed species. And they also can curl their ears like a ram's horn, and so you can see that in this picture. These ones sort of on the side, they have such long ears, sometimes they roost with them out, and you can see them all the way out, and other times they curl them underneath their wing membrane to stay warm, or just because they like it that way. So these are, this is a cluster of hibernating Townsend's big-eared bats, but they also, the females will cluster like this in the summertime when they're raising their pups. So if you see a single Townsend's big-eared bat, it's probably a male. If you see them uncluster in the summertime, probably females with pups. And if in the winter, I don't really know. We don't know whether these are males or females. We don't pluck them off the wall, so mystery. The next one I have for you is the pallid bat. This recently, this year has been designated as California's state bat. So we have a state, lots of different designated state things, but now we have a state bat. Golden fur, has golden fur like the Golden State, perfect for us. Eats scorpions. Yes, big, this is a, big strong bat.
And Jerusalem crickets.
And Jerusalem crickets, yes. Centipedes, beetles, grasshoppers. They have these extra large ears, good for listening. So they don't echolocate so much to find insects. They listen for their insects to crawl on the ground and make sound, and then they pounce on them and chomp them, take them apart. They can also, one of the only bat species that can take off from the ground. So they have such strong wings that they can go from the ground up, which is not the case. Most bats have to crawl across, find a tree or some kind of tall object, crawl up and fly off. So pallid bats are kind of special for that reason. Also very social. They have really fun social echolocation calls. Oh yeah, another bit. Look, with the beady eye, so cute. Okay, one of the smaller bats that cavers see often maybe is a little brown bat. So this species is in the genus Myotis, or you might hear people talk about Myotis bats. They're all very similar, small and brown, very difficult to tell apart. We lump them together as Myotis. This one specifically is a little brown bat, Myotis lucifugus. Teeny tiny, like 5 to 8 grams, maybe like an inch or two tall. Wingspan is like maybe 6 inches long. Compared to the hoary bat, the one that was on the first slide, that's a 30-gram bat, big and chonky in your hand, and maybe like a 12-inch wingspan. So those are the smallest and the largest species that we have in California and North America generally. Little brown bats often live in buildings, and so the Myotis species, they're small and they don't mind human structures. Actually, they appreciate them sometimes, so that's good. But they are subject to white nose syndrome, so this is one of the species that can perish from being infected with the fungus that causes the white nose syndrome disease. And the big brown bat is named for its big personality. This is also a beetle chomper, so they have big mouths and big jaws, and they're not really big in size. They're not that much bigger than the little brown bat, but they're big in personality. So they also like to live in barns and sort of places where people tend to have problems with bats in buildings. Lastly, the bat you might see in caves, or maybe you won't see it in caves because they roost in large colonies, like hundreds of thousands. So you don't really want to go into those caves because their poop is really smelly and that's not good for your lungs. But you might see them outside of caves or on bridges. We were just talking about the Yolo bypass in Sacramento. This species lives 500,000 Mexican free-tailed bats roost in the expansion cracks underneath the bridge, and they fly out every night. It's a fun place to go and see bats if you are ever near Sacramento. This is a long-distance migrator flyer. So you can see the tail is free there. It comes out of the tail membrane, extends beyond the tail membrane. And their ears in the front are small, and they also touch. And they have these crazy long fur, like little hairs on the side of their feet. And all of those things are meant to help them with aerodynamics and going really far, really fast. They've been clocked at 60 miles per hour and over 10,000 feet in altitude above the ground, following this migratory moth. Migratory moths. So this species also is visible on weather radar. There's people doing research with radar, trying to track these like thousands of bats coming on a bridge and trying to figure out where they're going. Because they also live a lot near agricultural areas, and they eat corn bollworm moth larvae and army cutworm moths. So those are important pests for rice farming and other agriculture. So this is a good bat for agriculture. Okay, what do I have next here? Here are some bats you won't see in caves. These are tree roosting species. On the left, the hoary bat. In the center, the red bat. There is a western and eastern red bat. And then here, the silver-haired bat on the right. So all of these species roost in trees. You might be able to see they have this kind of frosty fur, these like white tips to their fur. The silver-haired black is black on the bottom and then white on the edges and red and black. And anyway, these are very colorful bats. They're not just brown. And that's because they roost either on the tree bark or underneath a clump of leaves. So someday I will look up into a tree and see the bat like roosting there. In theory, you should be able to do that, but because they blend in so well, it's really difficult to see them. These bats are also long-distance migrators, and these are the species that are being impacted by terrestrial wind energy. So they're using wind currents, and for other reasons we don't fully understand yet, are attracted to wind turbines. So this is a really big problem between white nose syndrome and wind energy. Those are the biggest threats to bats across the country. For example, in the Altamont Pass, which is near San Francisco, there's thousands of bats dying generally and hundreds of just hoary bats dying every year. So there are things that companies can do, and we're trying to encourage that, but we're slow to start, and I hope we see a lot more action at wind facilities as we transition to renewable energy, which is something that we definitely need. So just to end, I'll put a plug in that you all are great advocates for bats, and I thank you for all that you do for advocating for them. Learning and sharing them is half the battle. Bats have a bad rap, of course, so sort of sharing these fun facts is a great way to advocate for bats to the general public and your friends. This product is kind of fun if you want to experience bats at night. This is a microphone that you can plug into your cell phone or to a tablet. And there's a couple of different types of these devices, but we have technology now where the microphone will hear the bat echolocation call, run it through a software program on your phone or on your tablet, and tell you what species is running around. So this is the layperson's version, which is just a couple $100. You can plug it in your phone. It's not the most accurate, to be honest. So if you're doing research or somewhere where it's really important to understand actually what species is there, this is not your tool. But it's super fun time, and just for outreach, it's really great. So just some examples of things, resources that we can use. I'll also put a plug-in for for Bat Conservation International. Their website has a ton of really good information, so if you ever get questions about bats in buildings or things you can do to improve bat habitat, they have really good resources on finding native plants that bloom at night. That's sort of this idea to create a bat garden, not just a butterfly garden for pollinators and butterflies, but also to support those native plants that support bats and grow those insects that they need to eat also. Lastly, you can help us learn more about where bats live and what they're doing. So I work for a state agency, and we have 2 reporting websites. You can Google report a bat colony or report white nose syndrome. So if you know of a bat colony where the landowner is okay with sharing that information and wants to generate contribute to our understanding of where bats live in the state, there is that opportunity. These dots on the right-hand side are places where people have already reported colonies or diseased bats. So you can report dead, dying, diseased bats. This is also a good way for us to do passive surveillance for white nose syndrome and sort of understand where and why bats might be dying. You'll see a lot of these are from where people live, places where people live. So a lot of these are bats in houses reports and things like that, but it's intended for whatever purpose. Yeah, and I think I will stop there. I have a few minutes for questions, and so we stay on time. And so thank you for listening, and I'll take any questions.
Oh, I got one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned things with the wind turbines. Who
Yeah.
can we get to tell them to do that? Like, do we have to write our
the biggest.
representative?
Yes. I think the biggest challenge with the wind and bats issue right now is that there's not a lot of advocacy. I don't think people really understand the scale of bat impacts. Thousands of bats are dying every year at the existing facilities, and that we have plans to expand renewable energy and build more wind energy facilities, which is great for climate change and getting off of fossil fuels. And at the same time, the way we're addressing bat fatalities right now is not good enough. So the other thing that's missing is some kind of incentive. And so I think public opinion and advocacy, like calling representatives, or right now the counties, a lot of those projects are permitted through the counties and the state. So just getting involved with the sort of regulated part, or the state legislation, I think is good too. I'm just sharing.
But I mean,
Yeah.
it's not just saying, is there a solution? Is there time?
Yeah.
What suggestion do you make to your legislature to say, hey, they need to be operated in a different way?
Yeah.
It's always good to have
Yes.
a complaint and a solution.
Thank you. Yeah, the solution is smart curtailment. That's the term. So curtailment is stopping the turbine blades from spinning. So that results in a loss of power generation. But at low wind speeds, the amount of power that you generate is pretty small, and you can reduce a lot of bat fatalities, because bats don't fly when it's crazy windy. But you make a ton of energy when it's crazy windy. So finding that sweet spot of what exactly is the speed where we can lose a little bit of power but not kill so many bats, and when does that happen? Generally what season and what time of night? Smart curtailment uses the, like, in real time sometimes, active bat activity, acoustics, or just modeling. Like, bats are typically active when it's over 10 degrees Celsius and before the storm comes through. Then you can use those types of environmental variables to choose the times of year when the turbine blades are not spinning. And so that's the solution really going forward.
So you're still going to kill some bats, but it'll be greatly reduced.
Exactly, yes. And there's more research always going into deterrence. Also, the other solution is to, like, acoustic or visual deterrence, something that the bats don't like. Yeah, yep. There's mixed results with that. That's not quite as effective at every site as curtailment is, but I think there's a lot of, actually, Department of Energy just put a ton of the infrastructure bill funding into research for deterrence. So hopefully we'll learn more about that soon. Yeah. Yeah, Carol.
Do you have time for a different question?
Sure.
So I saw this bat colony in one of the mud caves at Oswego, and I go there fairly frequently, and I'd never seen a bat colony there before.
Okay.
And we saw it one time, and then we never saw it again.
Yeah.
So does that mean, is there a significance to that? I don't understand why we would see it one time, and we go different times of the year, and we go multiple times.
Yeah.
Where would the bats go? I don't understand.
Females, when they're roosting in colonies and taking care of pups, they do roost switching. So they'll move between roosts throughout the summer season to get, like, their Goldilocks perfect temperature places. Or if they feel threatened at one roost, maybe they'll move their pups to another roost. Or they'll follow their insect resources. Like, maybe they go over here and they eat all the moths that are over here, so they have to move over here and eat the moths that are here. So there's a couple different reasons why they might switch roosts, but that could be what's happening if it's in the summertime. And also kind of in the winter, like if they're hibernating there, the temperature, it's mostly like temperature or insects. If they have both of those things, they'll stay. But if one of those changes, they might move.
How far can they move when they choose to move?
Oh, far, yes. Bats can fly very far. Like this hoary bat can fly over 600 miles in 30 days, one GPS tag. Individual bats foraging from a roost can go, 25, 50 miles, depends on the species. The little myotas can't go as far, they're smaller, but the migrating species can go hundreds of miles. So yeah, good question though, in mud caves, I haven't heard that one before. That's interesting. Yeah, cool. Okay, well, it's 4:30. I think it's time to hand it over to Patrick. So thank you for listening and have a great afternoon.